HFY pressed his weathered hands against the cold metal wall of the abandoned medical station. Once, this place had been filled with the soft hum of healing energy and the gentle voices of his people tending to the wounded. Now, dust covered. The empty beds where patients had once rested while Keth-Mori healers mended their broken bodies and troubled minds. The old Keth-Mori sighed, his pale blue skin shimmering slightly as his emotions shifted. His large, dark eyes reflected the dim emergency lighting that barely kept the station functional. At over 300 years old, he remembered when beings from across the galaxy would travel for months just to reach a Keth-Mori healing sanctuary. They came with wounds that machines could not fix, hearts that medicine could not heal, and minds torn by trauma that only empathic touch could mend. But those days were long gone. HFY walked slowly through the empty corridors, his bare feet making no sound on the smooth floor. The Keth-Mori had always moved quietly, their natural grace making them seem like they floated rather than walked. It was one of many gifts that had once made them precious to the galaxy. They could sense pain from across a room, feel the deep hurts that others carried hidden in their hearts, and with gentle touch and focused will, they could heal wounds that went far deeper than flesh. His people had been the greatest healers the galaxy had ever known. For thousands of years, they had served as doctors, counselors, and peacekeepers. When wars broke out between star systems, the Keth-Mori would arrive to tend the wounded from both sides. When plagues struck distant worlds, they would come to ease suffering that no medicine could touch. When entire civilizations fell into despair, the Keth-Mori would help them find hope again. But progress had a way of leaving some things behind. The first changes came slowly. New medicines appeared that could heal injuries in minutes instead of hours. Machines were built that could scan minds and fix mental problems with precise electrical pulses. Computer programs were created that could talk to troubled souls and give them comfort without any real understanding or feeling behind the words. At first, the galaxy still valued the Keth-Mori. After all, there were some things that machines could not do. Some hurts ran so deep that only genuine care and empathy could reach them. Some souls were so damaged that they needed the touch of someone who truly understood their pain. But as the decades passed, fewer and fewer beings sought out Keth-Mori healers. Why spend weeks traveling to a healing sanctuary when you could visit a medical center on your own world? Why open your heart to an empath when a therapy computer could analyze your problems and give you solutions? Why trust in the old ways when the new ways were faster, cheaper, and more convenient? The great healing sanctuaries began to close one by one. The Keth-Mori found themselves unwelcome in the busy medical centers of advanced worlds. Their gentle methods seemed primitive compared to the shining machines that could heal bodies in moments. Their deep empathy seemed unnecessary when computers could process emotional problems like mathematical equations. HFY stopped at what had once been the main healing chamber. The room was large and circular, with soft curves that promoted calm and peace. In the center, a raised platform had once held the healing crystal, a massive gem that could focus and amplify the empathic abilities of his people. The crystal was gone now, sold years ago to pay for basic supplies when no one came seeking healing anymore. He remembered the last patient they had treated here, a young Altarian soldier, her mind shattered by the horrors she had witnessed in some distant war. The military doctors had tried everything to help her. They had repaired her body perfectly, replaced her damaged organs with synthetic ones that worked better than the originals. But her mind remained broken, trapped in endless nightmares that no medicine could touch. Her family had brought her to the sanctuary as a last hope. HFY had worked with her for weeks, gently drawing out the poison of her memories, helping her process the trauma that no machine could understand. Slowly, carefully, he had helped her piece her mind back together. When she left, she was whole again, her eyes bright with new hope. But she had been the last one. After her, no one came. Now HFY lived alone on the station with only a handful of other elderly Kethmori. The younger generation had scattered across the galaxy, trying to find new purposes for their gifts. Some became entertainers, using their empathic abilities to read audiences and give better performances. Others became servants to wealthy families, using their healing powers to ease minor aches and pains. A few found work as therapists in remote colonies where modern medicine had not yet reached. But none of them were doing what they were meant to do. None of them were using their full potential to heal the deep wounds of the galaxy. The old healer walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, he knew, there was suffering that machines could not touch. There were beings struggling with pain that ran deeper than flesh, carrying burdens that computer programs could not understand. But no one called for the Kethmori anymore. The galaxy had forgotten that some problems could not be solved with technology alone. As he stood there in the darkness, HFY felt something strange. It was faint at first, like a whisper at the edge of hearing, but slowly it grew stronger. It was a feeling of wrongness, of something deeply disturbed in the fabric of space itself. His empathic senses, still sharp after all these years, detected waves of fear and despair coming from distant star systems. Something was happening out there, something that filled entire populations with a kind of hopelessness that he had never felt before. It was not like the normal sadness that came with loss, or the fear that came with danger. This was deeper, darker, like a poison that ate away at the very will to live. HFY reached out with his mind, trying to understand what he was sensing. The feelings came from multiple directions, from different star systems scattered across the galaxy. Whatever was causing this despair was spreading, moving from world to world like a plague. He tried to contact the Galactic Council, sending urgent messages about what he was detecting, but his communications went unanswered. Who would listen to an old Kethmori on an abandoned station? Who would believe that empathic senses could detect something that their advanced sensors could not? The galaxy had moved beyond the need for healers like him. They had their machines, their medicines, their computer programs. They believed that technology could solve any problem, cure any disease, fix any broken thing. But HFY knew better. He had lived long enough to understand that some wounds could not be healed by machines. Some problems required a touch that came from the heart, not from a program. Some healing could only happen when one soul reached out to another with genuine care and understanding. As the waves of despair grew stronger, washing over him from across the galaxy, HFY knew that the time of testing was coming. Soon, the advanced civilizations with their mighty machines would face something that technology could not fix. Soon, they would need the kind of healing that only his people could provide. But would anyone remember the Kethmori in time? Would anyone think to call upon the forgotten healers before it was too late? Standing alone in the darkness, surrounded by the empty chambers where hope had once been restored, HFY could only wait and hope that somewhere in the galaxy, someone would remember that healing was more than just fixing broken things. It was about mending broken spirits, restoring lost hope, and connecting heart to heart across the vast emptiness of space. The stars continued to shine in the darkness, but their light seemed dimmer now, as if the growing shadow of despair was beginning to swallow even the light itself. Admiral Texavani of the Altarian Empire stared at the holographic display showing the latest reports from the outer colonies. The blue-skinned officer's normally calm face showed signs of strain as red warning symbols blinked across the star map. 17 worlds had gone silent in the past month. Not destroyed, not conquered. Simply quiet. The first reports had seemed normal enough. A mining colony on Kepler 442b had sent a routine message saying their workers were feeling unusually tired and sad. The colonial government requested medical supplies and counselors, standard procedure for frontier worlds where isolation sometimes affected morale. But within days, all communication from the colony stopped. When the Empire sent a ship to investigate, they found something that chilled even the most experienced officers. The colonists were still alive, but they had simply given up. They sat in their homes, staring at nothing, refusing to eat or drink or care for themselves. They responded to questions with blank stares, as if they could not remember why anything mattered. The medical team tried everything. They ran full scans, administered stimulants, used neural therapy devices. The colonists' bodies were perfectly healthy. Their brains showed normal activity. But something inside them had broken, some essential spark that made life worth living. Dr. Melthari, the Empire's leading expert on psychological disorders, had never seen anything like it. "It's as if they've forgotten how to hope," she reported to the Admiral. "Not just sadness or depression. This is deeper. They've lost the ability to care about anything, including their own survival." The rescue team managed to evacuate most of the colonists, bringing them to medical facilities on nearby worlds. But something strange happened during the journey. Some of the rescue workers began showing the same symptoms. Despite following all quarantine protocols, the condition seemed to spread to anyone who spent extended time around the affected colonists. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. The medical facilities where the colonists were taken became new centers of infection. The condition spread through the staff, then to other patients, then to their families and friends. The Empire tried to contain it, setting up isolation chambers and using robotic medical systems to treat the affected. But somehow, the condition continued to spread. The Zenthari Collective, known throughout the galaxy for their logical approach to all problems, had initially scoffed at the Empire's reports. The Zenthari were a machine-enhanced species that had long ago replaced most of their biological functions with synthetic systems. They believed themselves immune to such primitive emotional disorders. They were wrong. When the condition reached Zenthari space, it struck their cybernetic population with devastating effect. The logical minds that had once been their greatest strength became trapped in loops of meaninglessness. Unable to find any rational purpose for existence, entire Zenthari cities simply shut down. The enhanced beings sat motionless in their mechanical bodies, their brilliant minds unable to find a single reason to continue functioning. The Corvan Federation responded with typical military precision. As soon as reports of the condition reached their space, they sealed their borders and began preparing for war against an invisible enemy. The Corvan had faced many threats in their violent history, but they had always been able to fight back. This enemy offered nothing to shoot at, no army to defeat, no territory to defend. General Takmor, leader of the Federation's military council, watched helplessly as his own warriors began to succumb. These were soldiers who had faced death without fear, who had conquered worlds and defeated mighty enemies. But when the strange despair took hold of them, they laid down their weapons and simply stopped caring about victory, defeat, or anything else. The condition spread faster than anyone had imagined possible. It moved through hyperspace communication, networks, somehow transmitting itself through quantum entanglement channels used for faster-than-light messages. It followed trade routes and diplomatic missions. It seemed to appear wherever beings gathered together, as if contact itself was the carrier. Dr. Yishitai, one of the few remaining scientists still working on the problem, began calling it the void sickness. "It's not a virus or bacteria," she explained to the emergency session of the Galactic Council. "It's something else entirely. Something that attacks the part of the mind that finds meaning in existence." The great civilizations of the galaxy tried everything their technology could offer. They built isolation chambers that prevented all physical contact. They created robotic systems to care for the affected without risking contamination. They developed powerful drugs that could stimulate brain chemistry and force emotional responses. Nothing worked. The void sickness seemed to adapt to every countermeasure. It spread through sealed environments, affected artificial intelligences, and ignored all attempts at biological intervention. Worse still, anyone who spent time studying the condition often became infected themselves, as if understanding the despair was enough to succumb to it. Fear began to grip the remaining healthy populations. If their greatest minds could not solve this problem, if their most advanced technology was useless against it, what hope did they have? The fear itself seemed to make the condition spread faster, as if panic and despair created fertile ground for the infection. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy began to retreat inward. The Altarian Empire recalled all ships to their core worlds and sealed their borders. The Zenthari Collective shut down all external communications and activated emergency protocols. The Corvan Federation declared martial law and began shooting any ship that approached their territory. Even the proud Nexari, an ancient species that had survived countless galactic catastrophes, began to withdraw from the galaxy. Their crystal cities went dark. Their trade networks shut down. Their diplomatic missions returned home. If beings who had lived for millions of years were afraid, what chance did younger civilizations have? The Outer Rim territories, where many, smaller species lived, were abandoned entirely. No rescue ships came for the colonies that still sent desperate pleas for help. No medical aid reached the worlds where entire populations lay dying not from disease, but from the simple inability to care about living. Among those forgotten worlds were the stations and sanctuaries where the Kethmori still dwelt. But even as the galaxy turned its back on the Rim territories, no one thought to ask the ancient healers for help. Their empathic abilities were considered primitive superstition, useless against a problem that had defeated the most advanced medical science in the galaxy. On his abandoned station, Zephi felt the waves of despair growing stronger every day. His empathic senses were overwhelmed by the suffering spreading across the stars. He sent message after message to anyone who might listen, begging them to remember that some problems could not be solved by machines alone. But his communications were lost in the flood of emergency signals, quarantine alerts, and panic broadcasts that filled every channel. The galaxy's attention was focused on their failing technology, their useless medicines, their broken machines that could heal bodies, but not souls. As world after world fell silent, as mighty civilizations retreated, in fear, as the greatest powers in the galaxy admitted defeat against an enemy they could not understand, the void sickness continued to spread. It moved through space like a shadow, swallowing star systems and leaving behind only empty shells of beings who had forgotten why life was worth living. The galaxy was learning a terrible truth. For all their advancement, for all their magnificent technology, they had forgotten something essential about what it meant to be alive. They had built machines to fix their bodies, computers to solve their problems, and artificial systems to meet their needs. But they had forgotten how to heal their souls. In the growing darkness, as fear and despair consumed the stars themselves, the void sickness moved ever closer to the core worlds where the last bastions of civilization huddled in terror. And still, no one remembered the Kethmori, the ancient healers who had once known how to mend the deepest wounds of the heart. The galaxy had ignored them for so long that now, when their gifts were needed most, they had been forgotten entirely. Captain Elena Vasquez had always been curious about the unknown regions of space. While other human ships focused on trade routes and established territories, she preferred exploring the quiet places where few beings ventured. The Outer Rim held mysteries that the busy core worlds had forgotten, and Elena believed that humanity's future lay in understanding all corners of the galaxy, not just the profitable ones. The UES Perseverance was not a warship or a massive cargo hauler. It was an exploration vessel built for long journeys into uncharted space. Elena's crew of 50 humans represented the best of Earth's spirit of discovery. They were scientists, engineers, diplomats, and explorers who shared their captain's belief that every species and every world had something valuable to offer. When they detected the faint energy signature of an old space station in what their star charts labeled as abandoned territory, Elena made the decision to investigate. Their long-range sensors showed the station was still functioning, though barely. Someone was still living there. "Captain," called out Dr. James Chen from the science station, "I'm reading some unusual energy patterns from that station. It's not like anything in our databases." Elena studied the readings with interest. The energy patterns were organic, almost alive in their rhythm. "Any signs of danger?" "None that I can detect. But the patterns suggest some kind of advanced biological technology. Maybe medical equipment?" That was enough to spark Elena's curiosity. "Take us in for a closer look." As the Perseverance approached the station, Elena could see that it was ancient by galactic standards. The design was elegant, with flowing curves and organic shapes that seemed to grow rather than built. It reminded her of coral formations she had seen in Earth's oceans, beautiful but weathered by time. Station. "Inhabitants, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth ship Perseverance," she broadcast on standard frequencies. "We're explorers from Earth. We detected your station and wanted to make contact." For several minutes, there was no response. Then a voice came through the speakers, speaking accented Standard Galactic with words that seemed chosen carefully. "This is HFY of the Keth Mori Healing Sanctuary. You are welcome to dock, Captain Vasquez, but I must warn you, few beings seek us out anymore. We have little to offer visitors from the advanced worlds." Something in the old being's voice touched Elena's heart. It was not just sadness, but a deep loneliness that spoke of years of being forgotten. "We're not looking for anything specific," she replied. "We're explorers. We're interested in learning about different species and cultures." Exploring. The voice seemed to test the word. "It has been long since anyone came here to explore. Please dock at Port 7. I will meet you." Elena led a small team to the station, including Dr. Chen and her chief diplomat, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Williams. As soon as the airlock opened, they could feel something different about the place. The air itself seemed to carry a sense of calm, as if the station had been designed to promote peace and healing. HFY was waiting for them in the docking bay. Elena had seen images of various alien species, but she was struck by the gentle presence of the elderly Keth Mori. His pale blue skin seemed to shimmer slightly, and his large dark eyes held a depth of compassion that reminded her of the best doctors she had known on Earth. "Welcome to our sanctuary," HFY said, inclining his head in a gesture of respect. "I am honored by your visit, though I fear you will find little here to interest explorers from such an advanced species." Elena frowned at his words. "Why do you say that? From what I can see, this station is remarkable. The design, the technology, the atmosphere itself, it's unlike anything we've encountered." HFY's eyes widened slightly, as if her words surprised him. "You find our sanctuary remarkable? But surely your people have medical facilities far superior to our simple healing chambers." "Different doesn't mean inferior," Dr. Chen said, pulling out his scanner. "These energy readings I'm detecting suggest some kind of bioelectric healing technology. We don't have anything like this on Earth." For the first time since they had arrived, Elena saw something like hope flicker in the old healer's eyes. "You are truly interested in our ways, not seeking to dismiss them as primitive?" "Of course we're interested," Elena said. "Humanity has always believed that we can learn from every species we meet. Each culture has developed unique solutions to the challenges of existence." HFY was quiet for a long moment, and Elena got the impression he was struggling with some internal conflict. Finally, he spoke. Would you like to see our healing chambers? It has been many years since anyone asked to learn about our methods." As HFY led them through the station, Elena began to understand the tragedy of the Kethmori. They were clearly an advanced species, but their advancement was in areas that the galaxy had apparently decided were no longer valuable. Their healing technology was based on empathy and emotional connection rather than mechanical precision. "Your people are empaths?" Sarah asked as they walked through corridors that seemed designed to calm the mind and soothe the spirit. "Yes," HFY replied. "We can sense the pain of others, both physical and emotional. Our healing works by connecting with that pain and helping to ease it. But such methods are slow compared to your medical machines." "Slow doesn't mean worthless," Elena said firmly. "Some problems require time and care to solve properly." When they reached the main healing chamber, Elena was amazed by the sophisticated understanding of psychology and biology that had gone into its design. Every curve, every color, every material had been chosen to promote healing and peace. "This is incredible," Dr. Chen said, taking readings with obvious excitement. "The entire chamber is designed to influence brainwave patterns and emotional states. It's like a combination of advanced psychology and environmental engineering." HFY watched their reactions with growing amazement. "You truly see value in what we have built?" "See value?" Elena shook her head. "This is revolutionary. The medical applications alone could help millions of beings. Why isn't this technology being used throughout the galaxy?" The old healer's expression grew sad again. "Because the galaxy moved beyond us. Faster healing became more important than deeper healing. Efficiency became more valued than empathy. We became relics of a simpler time." As they talked, Elena began to sense that there was more troubling HFY than just the abandonment of his people. There was a current of fear running beneath his words, a concern about something larger than personal loneliness. "Is there something else bothering you?" she asked gently. "Some other reason you seem so worried?" HFY hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Captain Vasquez, I must ask you something. In your travels, have you encountered anything strange? Any reports of beings losing hope? Entire populations falling into despair?" Elena exchanged glances with her team. They had indeed heard rumors, fragments of emergency broadcasts from the inner systems. Stories of colonies going silent, of rescue missions that never returned, of some kind of plague that affected the mind rather than the body. "We've heard some reports," she admitted. "Nothing confirmed, just scattered communications about some kind of psychological condition spreading through the core worlds." HFY's expression grew grave. "It is worse than reports suggest. I can sense it spreading, wave after wave of despair washing across the galaxy. It is a sickness that attacks the very will to live, and it is growing stronger." "What do you think it is?" Dr. Chen asked. "I believe it is a consequence of what the galaxy has become," HFY said slowly. "We have built magnificent machines to heal our bodies, but we have forgotten how to heal our souls. We have created artificial minds to solve our problems, but we have lost the ability to connect heart to heart. The void sickness feeds on this isolation, this disconnection from what makes life meaningful." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "And you think this is what's causing the plague?" "I am certain of it. But no one will listen to an old Kethmori. My people's warnings have been ignored for too long." Elena made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Then maybe it's time someone listened. We'd like to learn more about your healing methods, and we'd like to help you get your message to those who need to hear it." For the first time in decades, HFY smiled with genuine hope. These humans, these newcomers to the galactic community, saw value where others saw only worthless tradition. They were willing to listen where others had closed their ears. "You would do this? Even though my people have nothing to offer in return?" "You have everything to offer," Elena said firmly. Knowledge, wisdom, and the ability to heal wounds that our technology can't touch. That sounds like exactly what the galaxy needs right now. As the human exploration team prepared to learn the ancient arts of empathic healing, neither they nor HFY knew that the void sickness was already reaching toward human space. Soon they would have a chance to test whether the forgotten wisdom of the Kethmori could stand against a plague that had defeated the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. 3 months after first contact with the Kethmori, the emergency alert reached the Perseverance while Elena and her team were deep in study with HFY. The message came from Earth's colonial administration, marked with the highest priority: codes. Colony ships Mayflower and New Horizon have gone silent in the Kepler system. Dr. Chen read from the communication display. Last transmission reported unusual psychological effects among crew and colonists. Earth Command requests immediate investigation. Elena felt her stomach drop. She had been learning about the void sickness from HFY, but hearing that it had reached human space made the threat suddenly real. How many people are we talking about? Combined, both ships carry over 12,000 colonists, Chen replied grimly. HFY, who had been teaching Elena the basics of empathic sensing, immediately moved to his meditation cushion. The old Kethmori closed his eyes and reached out with his abilities, trying to sense what was happening in the distant human colonies. After several minutes, he opened his eyes with an expression of deep sorrow. "The void sickness has reached your people, Captain. I can feel their despair from here, like a wound in the fabric of space itself." Elena made her decision quickly. "HFY, we need to go to them. Will you come with us? Will you help us fight this thing?" The elderly healer was quiet for a long moment. "Captain, I am old, and I am only one Kethmori. The techniques we need to use against the void sickness require multiple healers working together. And even then, there is great risk." "What kind of risk?" "To heal someone affected by the void sickness, we must open our minds completely to theirs. We must experience their despair as if it were our own, then show them a path back to hope. But in doing so, we risk being consumed by the same emptiness that has taken them." Dr. Chen looked up from his medical scanners. "What if we could provide some kind of protection? Our medical technology might be able to monitor your condition and pull you back if you go too deep." HFY considered this. "Your machines cannot touch the mind directly, but they might be able to detect physical changes that signal danger. And there is something else." He looked directly at Elena. "In the months we have worked together, I have sensed something unusual about humans. Your species has a natural resistance to despair that I have rarely encountered." "What do you mean?" "Humans seem to possess an innate ability to find hope, even in hopeless situations. You connect to each other in ways that many advanced species have forgotten. Where others see only logic or efficiency, humans see possibility and meaning. This may be why the void sickness has not affected your people as quickly as it has others." Elena thought about this. It was true that humanity had survived many dark periods in their history by refusing to give up hope. Even in their darkest moments, humans had always found reasons to keep fighting, to keep believing in better tomorrows. "So you think humans might be able to help in the healing process?" "More than help," HFY said with growing excitement. "I believe humans might be the key to fighting the void sickness. Your natural empathy combined with your resistance to despair could make you ideal partners for Kethmori healers." The journey to the Kepler system took 2 weeks at maximum warp. During the trip, HFY worked intensively with Elena and her medical team, teaching them the basics of empathic healing. It was not easy for humans to learn, as they did not possess the natural psychic abilities of the Kethmori, but what they lacked in natural talent, they made up for with determination and intuitive understanding. Dr. Chen proved surprisingly gifted at sensing emotional states, while Lieutenant Commander Williams showed an exceptional ability to project calm and hope to others. Elena herself seemed to have a talent for maintaining emotional stability even while experiencing others' pain. The key, HFY explained as they practiced, is not to fight the despair, but to acknowledge it and then offer something stronger. Hope is not the absence of suffering, but the presence of meaning despite suffering. When they reached the Kepler system, they found the two colony ships drifting in space, their engines powered down, all communications silent. Scans showed that life support was still functioning, but there was no response to their hails. "Take us alongside the Mayflower," Elena ordered. "We're going aboard." The scene inside the colony ship was heartbreaking. Thousands of colonists sat motionless in their quarters or wandered the corridors like ghosts. They were physically healthy, but their eyes held no spark of life. When the rescue team tried to speak with them, they responded with blank stares or simple statements like, "What's the point?" or "Nothing matters." HFY immediately began working with the most severely affected colonists. But as he had warned, the process was dangerous. Each time he opened his mind to someone consumed by the void sickness, he risked being pulled into the same despair. Elena and Dr. Chen worked together to monitor HFY's condition, using their equipment to track his vital signs and brain activity. When they detected signs that he was being overwhelmed by the patient's despair, they would physically touch him, using their own emotional stability to anchor him to hope. The process was slow and exhausting. Each patient required hours of careful work, and even then, success was not guaranteed. But gradually, they began to see results. The first colonist they successfully treated was a young woman named Maria Santos, a botanist who had been excited about growing food on the new world. "I remember," she whispered as the despair lifted from her mind. "I remember why I wanted to come here. The trees we were going to plant, the gardens we were going to grow." Tears streamed down her face, but they were tears of relief, not sorrow. Word spread through the ship that some colonists were being healed. Something remarkable happened. The humans who had not yet been affected by the void sickness began volunteering to help with the healing process. They could not perform the complex empathic techniques that HFY used, but they could offer emotional support, share their own hope and determination, and help anchor both healer and patient to positive emotions. Dr. Chen made a crucial discovery during the second week of treatment. "Captain, I think I understand how the void sickness spreads," he announced during one of their daily briefings. "It's not transmitted through physical contact or even proximity. It spreads through emotional isolation." "What do you mean?" "The people who get infected first are those who are already feeling disconnected from others. Lonely colonists, overworked. Crew members, anyone who has become emotionally isolated from their community. The sickness feeds on that isolation and grows stronger." Elena thought about the implications. "So the cure isn't just healing individuals, it's rebuilding connections between people." "Exactly, and that's something humans are naturally good at." They began organizing group healing sessions where recovered colonists would help with treating those still affected. The humans' natural tendency to form communities and support each other proved to be a powerful weapon against the void sickness. As each person was healed, they became part of the healing network, helping to strengthen the emotional bonds that the sickness could not penetrate. HFY was amazed by what he witnessed. "In all my years, I have never seen healing work like this," he told Elena. "Keth Mori healers work alone, each of us using our individual abilities. But humans heal together, as a community. Your entire species becomes part of the healing process." By the end of the third week, both colony ships had been cleared of the void sickness. But more importantly, they had discovered something that could change the course of the galactic plague: the combination of Keth Mori empathic abilities and human Emotional resilience created a healing method that was more powerful than either species could achieve alone. "We need to take this knowledge to the rest of the galaxy," Elena said as they prepared to leave the Kepler system. "But first, we need to gather more Keth Mori healers and train more humans in these techniques." HFY nodded, his eyes bright, with hope for the first time in decades. "I know where to find other Keth Mori. They are scattered across the Rim territories, forgotten and abandoned. But if we can bring them together with human partners, we might be able to heal the galaxy," Elena finished. As the Perseverance set course for the Outer Rim, carrying the first joint human Keth Mori healing team, neither species knew that they were about to embark on the greatest healing mission in galactic history. The void sickness had spread across the stars by feeding on isolation and despair. But now, hope and connection were fighting back, carried by the most unlikely alliance the galaxy had ever seen. 2 years after the first successful treatment of the void sickness, the galaxy was slowly awakening from its nightmare. The joint human Keth Mori healing fleets had grown from a single ship to hundreds of vessels, each carrying teams of empathic healers and human emotional anchors to worlds that had been given up for dead. Elena Vasquez, now promoted to Admiral and Commander of the Galactic Healing Initiative, stood on the bridge of the flagship UES Hope Rising as it approached Altaria Prime, the once mighty capital of the Altarian Empire. The planet had been silent for over a year, its billions of inhabitants lost to the despair that had consumed so many worlds. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Maria Santos, the same botanist they had saved in the Kepler system and who had become one of their most gifted human healers. "We're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's weak, but it's there." Elena smiled. Any communication from Altaria Prime was a miracle. 6 months ago, when their healing fleets had first begun working on the planet, there had been no response at all from the surface. The entire population had been trapped in such deep despair that they could barely remember how to operate basic communication equipment. "Put it through," Elena ordered. The face that appeared on the screen was that of Admiral Texavani, the Altarian officer who had once commanded the Empire's mighty fleets. But she looked different now. The rigid military bearing was still there, but her eyes held a warmth that had not been present before the healing began. "Admiral Vasquez," Texavani said, and Elena could hear genuine emotion in her voice. "I wanted to personally thank you and your teams. My people, we had forgotten what it meant to feel hope. You have given us back our lives." "How are the healing centers working?" Elena asked. The human Keth Mori teams had established permanent healing facilities on every affected world, places where the ongoing work of emotional and spiritual recovery could continue. "Better than we could have imagined. Our people are not just recovering from the void sickness. They are different, better. We are learning to connect with each other in ways we had forgotten. The healing centers have become community centers, places where Altarians gather not just for treatment but to support each other." This was happening throughout the galaxy. The healing process required more than just removing the void sickness from infected minds. It required rebuilding the emotional connections that had made beings vulnerable to the plague in the first place. And as those connections were restored, entire civilizations were discovering aspects of themselves they had lost in their rush toward technological advancement. Elena's communication device chimed with an incoming message from Earth. The face of President Chen appeared on her personal screen. "Elena, I wanted to update you on the latest developments. The Zenthari Collective has formally requested that we establish permanent healing centers in their space. They're also asking for human advisors to help them redesign their social systems." This was remarkable news. The Zenthari had once prided themselves on their logical, emotion-free society. But the void sickness had shown them the cost of abandoning empathy and connection. Now they were actively seeking to reintegrate emotional intelligence into their cybernetic culture. "What about the Corvin Federation?" Elena asked. President Chen's expression grew more serious. That's more complicated. General Thakmor has agreed to allow healing teams into Corvan space, but he's struggling with the implications. Their entire military culture was based on strength through isolation and dominance. Learning to value emotional connection and empathy is challenging their fundamental beliefs about what makes a society strong. Elena nodded. The Corvan would be one of the hardest cultures to heal, not because they were more severely affected by the void sickness, but because the healing process required them to question everything they had believed about strength and survival. A gentle chime indicated that HFY was requesting her attention. The elderly Kethamori had become the coordinator of all healing efforts, working with human partners to train new teams and develop better techniques. Elena found him in the ship's meditation chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing the status of healing efforts across the galaxy. "Admiral," HFY said, his voice carrying the contentment of someone whose life's work had finally been recognized. "I have remarkable news. The last of the infected worlds in the core systems has been declared clear of the void sickness." Elena felt a surge of joy and relief. All of them? Even the Nexari crystal cities? Even the Nexari. Though their healing required some unique approaches. Their crystalline biology meant we had to learn entirely new empathic techniques. HFY paused, his expression growing thoughtful. "But there is something more important I must tell you. The healing has spread beyond what we intended." "What do you mean?" "The techniques we developed to fight the void sickness have begun to heal other problems as well. Ancient conflicts between species are being resolved as beings learn to truly understand each other's perspectives. Worlds that have been damaged by war or environmental disaster are being restored as communities work together with new levels of cooperation. The galaxy is not just recovering from the plague, Elena. It is becoming something better than it was before." This was true. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy of unprecedented cooperation between species. The Altarian Empire and the Zenthari Collective, who had been cold rivals for centuries, were now working together on joint healing centers. The Corvan Federation had begun sharing their military technology to help protect vulnerable worlds during the healing process. But perhaps most remarkably, the forgotten species of the Outer Rim were being welcomed back into galactic society. The Kethmori were no longer seen as primitive relics, but as the keepers of essential wisdom that the galaxy had almost lost. Other species with gifts that had been dismissed by the technological civilizations were also being rediscovered and valued. Elena walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. In the distance, she could see the lights of healing. Ships from dozens of species working together in the Altarian system. Human vessels worked alongside Kethmori sanctuary ships, Zenthari logic vessels, Altarian medical frigates, and even a few Corvan escorts providing protection. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Williams joined her at the viewport. "Hard to believe. It's been 2 years since we first met, HFY," she said. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we hadn't been curious enough to investigate that old station," Elena replied. "The galaxy came so close to losing everything. But we didn't lose it. And maybe that's what makes humans special. We're curious about things others ignore. We see value where others see only worthlessness." Elena nodded. The galaxy had become so focused on efficiency and advancement that they forgot about the things that make life worth living. Connection, empathy, hope, the ability to heal not just bodies, but souls. And now? Elena smiled as she watched a group of young Altarians on the planet below gathering around a human Kethmori healing team, not for treatment, but simply to learn about emotional connection and community building. Now the galaxy is remembering. The void sickness taught us that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, we still need each other. We still need to care for one another, to form real connections, to find meaning in something greater than ourselves. A new message appeared on the communication system. It was from the Galactic Council, which had been reformed after the crisis, to include representatives from all species, not just the major powers. "This is Counselor Yethmari," came the transmission. "I am pleased to announce that the Galactic Council has unanimously voted to establish the Elena Vasquez Institute for Empathic Healing, with permanent funding and support for human Kethmori healing teams throughout the galaxy. We have also voted to make emotional and social healing a priority in all future development projects." Elena was moved by the honor, but more importantly, she was pleased that the lessons learned from the void sickness would not be forgotten. The galaxy had learned that true advancement required not just technological progress, but emotional and spiritual growth as well. As the Hope Rising prepared to depart for their next mission, Elena received a personal message from Zeph High. "Admiral, I have lived for over 300 years, and I have seen my people rise to greatness and fall into obscurity. But I have never seen anything as beautiful as what we have accomplished together. Humans and Kethmori, working as partners to heal not just individuals, but entire civilizations." "We couldn't have done it without you," Elena replied. "Your people's wisdom and abilities were the key to everything. And your people's hope and determination were what made it possible. Humans do not give up, even when facing the impossible. You see potential where others see only problems. You build connections where others build walls." Elena looked out at the stars one more time before returning to the bridge. The galaxy was healing, not just from the void sickness, but from centuries of isolation, fear, and the belief that technology alone could solve all problems. Beings across the galaxy were learning to connect with each other again, to value empathy alongside efficiency, to remember that healing was about more than just fixing broken things.